Patricia Heinzen.
Yes, good morning. Well, the last time I stood before you, it was regarding your objective in adopting the goals and objectives of the IRWMP, the Integrated Regional Water Management Plan, goals and objectives that weren't even finished yet. And now we find out that the MOU, or the Memorandum of Understanding that was supposed to have been signed by all of these counties, haven't even been signed. This is starting to smell like a real stinky kettle of fish to me. You have been representing us, being on a board that we're not even legally part of. And it just, you're interacting with a group that we have no authority to be on. When those MOUs are not signed, that makes it so that we're not really part of this board. Now, Mr. Baugh, last night when you were at our tea party, you said if you were king for a day, you would do away with AB 32 and SB 375. And yet this Integrated Regional Water Management Plan, you're walking right into it. They're going to make you jump through loopholes that will require you to abide by climate change, sustainable communities. There's all kinds of things in there that you will have to abide by in order to get this money. And then speaking of the budget, there is no money. I mean, there may be money initially, but you know when money comes from the state, it always comes with strings attached, and that includes this. So I say this is a blessing in disguise. This is a good chance for you to back away from this and just say no. Just say no to this Integrated Regional Water Management Plan. This is a great opportunity for you to pull back and represent us, because we don't want it. We don't think it's it's not a good deal for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Patricia Heinzen.
Thank you. I'd like to say to Mr. Minturn, I'm very glad to be a part of this elaborate process where the public is allowed to comment. I too reiterate everything that's been said by these speakers on this subject. I am against your signing a memorandum of understanding, and I personally resent very much that we've been assuming all along, because it's been presented to us by the Northern Sacramento Integrated Water Management Plan consultants, that you are already part of it. And I think lawyers call this disingenuous. It's very disingenuous that it's been represented to us that Shasta County is part of it and the Memorandum of Understanding hasn't even been signed. But thank God, please don't. The draft goals and guidelines are fraught with ambiguity and are extremely scary, if you will. I don't even know if you've read them. Why would you even vote on something like that? Or if you understand that they could be changed at the drop of a hat after it's all been said and done. And these people put good effort into going up wordsmithing every single word. It can be changed down the road. We've heard talk today that now it's in vogue to work together in California. When hasn't it been in vogue to work together in California? We the people have been assuming that you are best representing our interests and are voting our interest, and that you are working together. It's obvious to all of us in this room that government doesn't work very well, and why would we want to support another governmental infrastructure on a regional level? We don't want it. And in the words of Mr. Keogh, we do not want to be shackled. And there's no proof whatsoever that those draft goals and guidelines, even if they were adopted in total, would even work. None. I am against your adopting these. Please do not ratify them. I appreciate your attention. And also, for the record, Mr. Keogh, and for the next monthly report on the realignment, I'd like to see the number of arrests and charges pressed in that 2% number. That 2% was only the convicted new crime. Thank you.
Okay, that's all the requests I have. Mr. Minturn.
Chairman Modi. First of all, I understand that the contracts have been signed. It hasn't been one contract that's been circulated amongst all the counties, but rather each one, they've been signed in multi-part. And we do this sometimes with right-of-way contracts. The point is that all of the other 5 counties, Board of Supervisors, have adopted resolutions saying they want in, and they've signed their version of the contract, as we have as well, but as the water agency. So the contracts do exist, and the actions have been taken. As for specific commitments, I've heard discussion, for instance, that if we take any Prop 84 money, we're obligated to implement some particular agenda. Prop 84 predates integrated water planning, by and large. It goes back approximately 8 years. It was a general bond issue. It funded all sorts of things, parks and so forth. I understand that Fall River Valley CSD took a Prop 84 grant to do some park improvements. It's a benign grant. It makes money available. Probably the worst thing that could be said about it is that it increases the debt in California as a bond issue. But as bond issues go, it imposes no particular conditions other than what might be in the agreement, which is, of course, to deliver the project that's envisioned, and non-discrimination clauses and so forth. As for other points that were brought up, the county has certain mandates imposed by the state, of course, and anytime the legislature is in session, they are enacting laws which pass certain, some of which restrict what we can do, some of which mandate us to do certain things. Realignment is certainly a good example of that. The current requirements are for planning purposes. What they are trying to do is to get us to work together. And the Redding Basin is a good example of the benefits of planning, in that some water districts have groundwater available. The city of Anderson is an excellent example, and some don't. The city of Shasta Lake is a good example of a city that does not have access to groundwater, and so they use surface water. Well, there are opportunities. If that was all one water system, they could move water freely through their pipes, and they would make their own supply available by pumping groundwater where they can and by using surface water as they have supplies. For instance, ACID is flood irrigating in areas with surface water, even though groundwater is readily available. So the way the Redding Basin has developed, we have all these small water districts and small cities, each making their own supply arrangements. By working together, the city of Anderson and the city of Shasta Lake and Cottonwood Water District, we can better serve all of the customers here in Shasta County. And by working together with some of our adjoining counties, Glenn, Colusa, Butte, we can get through some of the paperwork that is required to do so. And so it's staff's recommendation that we continue to collaborate with our neighbors here in the Redding Basin and in the Sacramento Valley. If you have any specific questions, I'd be glad to answer them at this time.
Questions? Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Chair Modi. Although I'm not king for a day, I do have some questions. That would be kind of fun, wouldn't it? But there'd be responsibility that came with that. There have been a lot of legitimate questions asked at this meeting and that have also been asked at prior meetings. And I just would ask this question of the board. Rather than allow a lot of questions to perhaps go unanswered, would this board be interested in coming together in a special workshop, allowing all of these questions to come out and providing time to answer them plainly? I think that there has been a great effort to answer them all along. And from myself personally, I believe the goal has been to duplicate the type of effort that I see at rural counties, where we are able to come together and stand together against the state mandates that are being forced upon us. And so it is a perfectly logical goal, and that's what I believe this is doing. And if that is indeed what this is doing, why not take some time to share that? And I don't know if there's any interest, and if not, I'll go ahead and ask my questions here today, and perhaps we can answer that. But why not accept the challenge that has been given to us to answer that? If this is a good thing, which all along my votes have been in favor of it, that's a public record, then we would certainly be able to continue with that affirmative vote and move forward. And if it's not a good thing, if there's really something here that we're not seeing today, then that perhaps could be brought out there as well. It's just a thought.
Well, I see that as perhaps two separate issues. I'm going to ask County Council to step in here. What you're proposing, I think, is more of a workshop question and answer period, which may be appropriate if the board wants to go that direction. What I see here today is only ratification by the board as what has previously been approved by the Shasta County Water Agency. And so the questions I have to County Council is, have we done anything illegal up to this point, as was mentioned by people?
In short answer, no, nothing's been done illegally. What has been done is that all the actions have been done illegally, have been done legally, but they've been done by the Shasta County Water Agency. So if if this particular group was amenable to having the water agency be the ongoing partner with it, we wouldn't be here today. But it's my understanding that they want a county as opposed to the water agency, and under the law, the water agency is a separate legal entity with its own powers, separate from the county. And so what's here before today is for the county to essentially ratify, meaning that they adopt the decisions and actions that were done by the water agency and make it their own.
And there's nothing new being asked to be done by this board today. It's all
That is correct.
ratified
Nothing.
past action. So that's why I'm not sure that's what, I think I see it different than what you're suggesting here. So maybe you'd like to go ahead and answer.
Well, would we, and I understand what you're saying, and I understand the need to be legal, and today's action certainly makes sense, and it's consistent with our prior actions. Getting past today, would this board be interested in answering in a public workshop fashion some of the questions that continue to come to us, rather than ignore the obvious? The questions are going to go on and on and on. What are we afraid of? Why not simply allow all of that to come forward and come out, hold a public workshop where there is time allowed and it's not limited to just a few people asking a few questions, and answer the questions. I certainly would feel better if those questions were answered, but I will go ahead and answer my questions today in regards to today's
I think Mr. Key would like to speak to your, or you want to speak to that hit?
No, I'll yield to
Okay.
Supervisor BOS.
So I'll ask my questions, then I'll finish, and then we'll see if there are other people that are interested in that as well. Would you restate, just in simple terms, the overall goal of this agency? What is our goal in participation?
The goal of the Shasta County Water Agency really comes back to my primary goal in the integrated planning as well. Because back in 1957, when the Water Agency was formed by state law, the goal was to promote the beneficial use of water in Shasta County. And that was the Water Agency's goal, and the Water Agency really was a very early proponent of integrated planning here in the basin. And when the drought of the late 80s came along, that forced other water districts, and we realized that we needed to cooperate with those other water districts. But that continues to be the goal of integrated water resource planning, is to promote the beneficial use of water in Shasta County, to make water available where there is the greatest beneficial use there as provided in the Constitution. It's beneficial use and reasonable use of water, and to promote the beneficial and reasonable use of water and to make supplies available. The Water Agency has pursued that goal since 1957. The Water Agency obtained a contract with the Bureau of Reclamation for 5,000 acre-feet of water that the Water Agency has turned around and wheeled to individual agencies. Centerville got their entire supply virtually from the Water Agency. And you saw it today, the contractor that got 1 acre-foot of water. It's really to supply that contractor who has a multi-million-dollar Caltrans contract and needs $42 worth of water. And the same goes for customers in the city of Shasta Lake, the folks who have agricultural lands, but also even more so municipal and industrial users, to make water available for those users. That is the purpose of integrated water resource planning, is to safeguard the groundwater basin in particular as a supply for future generations of Shasta County residents, and to work together with our other counties, because otherwise we're going to be creating mirror images of our own plans, each within a separate county. So it's to provide that on an economically beneficial scale. It wasn't beneficial to put together a contract for 1 acre-foot of water for that one customer, even though they greatly benefited from it. But by aggregating that across many customers and by refining the process, we can make water available and thereby realize all the economic benefits that come with water.
So a shortened response might be that an honorable goal of protecting the rights of the water users to the benefit of Shasta County.
We're protecting the water rights so that we can use the water.
Okay.
But yes, sir.
Are we
Yes.
giving up any local control by this participation?
By joining with a larger group, there are other people that are participating in our decisions. I would point out that the cost of this project is $1 million, and that's just the cost for the consultant and so forth, going forward, on the order of $1 million. The county has participated in the 4-county group and also participated with the Northern California Water Association because it's an economically beneficial approach, and we can't fully afford to fund that. Our local water districts can't afford to pony up the money to go through all of the processes that have been necessary. Just as the Reading Area Water Council was originally formed because individual water districts couldn't afford to do the integrated planning, to do the groundwater model. The county spent $400,000, mostly with a grant from the McConnell Foundation, to model a groundwater basin. No individual water purveyor could afford to do that. As the economies of scale get greater and greater, we need these partners in order to be able to do this. We don't have the opportunity without them because staff is of the opinion that the resources aren't there amongst the local water districts to pursue a multi-million-dollar integrated planning effort. And we can't do as good a job, and we can't do as thorough a job, and we can't comply with all of the legal niceties that a plan requires unless we join with our neighbors. And our plan is a better plan. We share the groundwater basin with Tehama County. We can't plan the portions of the Reading Basin within Tehama County unless we're in a partnership with Tehama County. And there are differences. Tehama County has occasionally expressed concern that Shasta County is using groundwater out of the Reading Area Water Basin. By sitting down with our neighboring counties, we can plan the whole resource, and we can afford to go through all the legal niceties to where we have a plan that'll stand up to all the legal requirements and legal challenges that it may face.
Mr. Minturn, I think, I'll just reiterate, I think the question was, does anyone give up control of their water by joining this plan? No, in that this plan does not exert control over anyone's water. Thank you. County Council, did you want to step in here at this minute?
Yes, I just wanted to answer that particular question. Yes, the law provides under California Water Code Section 10549 that a regional water management group is not authorized to define or otherwise determine the water rights of any person.
Great, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr.
Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah, the desire would be probably for the shorter responses because I do have a number of questions, and I'm just trying to conclude here. I think you've said it already in your last response. There would be an alternative to this process, and that would be by Shasta County going this on our own. And you've stated a negative that we possibly cannot afford the $1 million expense to do that, or imposed upon agencies within Shasta County. So I'll move on. By participation in this, are we required then to pare down our water use here in Shasta County?
I'm not aware of any provisions that would require us to do so.
Well, the reason I ask that question is that is among a number of things, and I won't go through the whole list today. That is one of the issues that is being circulated in the community, and I think that we deserve, we have the responsibility to provide an accurate answer to that question.
Well, and I think I need to go back to Mr. Ruben Cruz's answer again, that nothing, that the Integrated Regional Water Management Board has no authority to do anything to anybody's water rights.
That's correct.
So
They cannot define, by law, a regional water management group may not define or otherwise determine the water rights of any person. California Water Code, Section 10549.
And then the question was brought up today, thank you, the question was brought about ROC, Reading Area Water Council, whether or not we need to go back to that agency. By this action today, we are saying that that agency would not be involved, and this would be Shasta County representing the citizens, or they would continue to be involved.
This would have no effect upon their role. We have always said that we wanted the Reading Area Water Council to actually have the seat. We didn't want the county or the water agency to be the representative. The other counties insisted that it be a county that represent them. We inadvertently have put up the water agency as a front, as a representative. Think of a representative democracy. The water agency has been put forth as the representative to this group. As proposed, that would instead be the county that is the representative for this group. The Reading Area Water Council does not have a direct role in this group because the other counties have said, no, it needs to be a county club. However, in everything we do, we have always made a good faith consultation with the Reading Area Water Council members because they are our water rights holders.
Pat, has this been on the council agenda recently, this subject at all?
The Reading Area Water Council, have they discussed the question?
Has there been any question as to continued participation or past action?
I'll defer to Mr. Wiedemeyer, but when was the last time the Reading Area Water Council, I do recall within the last year or so, there has been a meeting of the Reading Area Water Council
It's
that's heavily
infrequent.
involved.
I have not attended a recent meeting that I can remember, and I'm a member of the Reading Area Water Council.
That's correct. Our last meeting was when we took the Technical Advisory Committee members up. So it would be Jerry Cupp when we recommended him. So it would be prior to whenever we took this action in our board report.
See, we probably have that here. When did we take action to appoint Jerry Cupp? Because I remember.
He's number 5.
So item number 5, so that would have been June 14th, 2011, and there was a meeting before that of the Reading Area Water Council, so in May or so of 2011, so approximately a year ago today, was the last time there was serious discussion by the Reading Area Water Council.
Okay, and then reference was made in today's input from the audience about draft goals and guidelines. Whose draft goals and guidelines are we talking about? Are we talking about in reference to Prop 84, or are we talking about in reference to the Integrated Regional Water Management Control Board? Which one are we referring to?
perhaps I can step in, because since you were not at the meeting, we had this big discussion.
Thank
so,
you, I
yeah.
appreciate that.
It's a little bit of both. The Integrated Regional Water Management Board is putting together goals and objectives. At the same time, the Reading Area Water Council has goals and objectives that they established quite some time ago. And the question before us was, did the Reading Area Water Council goals and objectives conform partly, mostly, not at all, with what was suggested the Reading Integrated Regional Water Management Board? The consensus was that it was, but we didn't take any action on it.
Thank you. I'll yield the floor at this time. Thank you.
Other questions? I have just a couple here. Mentioned about the Reading Area Water Council and if they would still be involved. I would point out that, as you mentioned, that Eric Wiedemeyer is our staff person who facilitates those meetings, is there present at all those meetings. He's also our member on the TAC committee for the Integrated Regional Water Management Board, so certainly would be able to present and bring forward all items and concerns that the Reading Area Water Council would have, and you have done that in the past. Second of all, it's mentioned that we wanted to use that as a board, and the other counties wanted to have only a county role. I think it's slightly different in that they, yes, did want to just have a county role because they had the same concerns sort of that we did, is they have a number of different water agencies, and the question was which one do they pick and how they put them together, and you have all these different agencies, purveyors in their counties, and how do they deal with that? So they said let's make it the county as the head group, and that's why Again, they're asking us to do the same thing. So it's not a case of them just saying, we don't want the Reading Area Water Council. I think they were trying to deal with all the separate groups that they have in their county as well. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up, three things actually. You mentioned about the MOU. We do have, as you stated, signed copies, although maybe on separate pages, because that's how it's circulated. Is that something that if someone wanted to see, they could come and contact the CEO's office, and if they wanted to get a copy of that MOU, we could provide that with the sign, all the signatures on it?
Yes. Typically, a copy of those are kept with the department and/or with the clerk's
But I'm
office.
usually the contact person, and you can provide that. So, and then a couple things. It's, some people have suggested we should not adopt the plan today. Don't vote for this. Again, we're not adopting any plans today. We're only ratifying what the water agency has done in the past. And also it's suggested that, geez, if you adopt the goals and objectives, then they can just change them at a later date. Well, that's true of everything. I mean, our county adopts goals and objectives, and we come back and we change them down the road because things change. But it has to be ratified by this board. And certainly if the Integrated Regional Water Management Board changes their goals and objectives and plans, that's going to come back to this board by me for our input as well. So to say that, geez, they can just change it, like we're not going to pay attention, I think that's just a kind of unfair statement, because quite frankly, goals and objectives can be changed. Plans can be changed. You never have a concrete plan because the world changes. So any other questions here? Mr. Keogh.
I have an observation or two. Mention has been made by some of the speakers about goals and objectives. And as a point of fact, this board did not make a decision as to embracing those goals and objectives. And I think Chairman Modi has adequately described that. I am concerned about one thing, and it's this. Several of the speakers have been fearful about our participation in the Integrated Regional Water Management Organization. And I'm not sure that in specifics I understand what those concerns are. I tend to be supportive of Ms. Supervisor BOS' suggestion that we conduct a workshop. I am not interested in rhetoric, and I'm not interested in posturing, and I'm not interested in politics. If people have specific concerns about our participation, then I'd like to get those on the table, and let's address them in a forthright manner. I take at face value the sincerity of the speakers today, because they have concerns. I just want to know what the heck those concerns are.
Okay.
That concludes my remark.
Mr. Cadd, you have something?
Could I speak again?
I'll give you a minute. Yes, sir.
I just come forward for some comments that were made here real quickly, that Proposition 84 is innocuous. Folks, I'll tell you something. You need to read it. You need to understand it totally. If you don't believe that, go to page 84 of the guidelines that I'll send Mr. Baugh. It very clearly states that before you can even apply for a grant, you have to sign a form stating that you understand Prop 84 guidelines. You have to understand it before you can even apply for a grant. Then if you get the grant, then you have to sign a letter saying that you will upgrade, getting the grant, you will upgrade your standards to what the new standards will be. As what Mr. Modi was just saying, guidelines and standards, they change. Because DWR, Department of Water Resources, has got a handbook out on climate change, and they are going to be changing. I've talked to Dan McManus of DWR. He's stationed down in Red Bluff. He and I had quite a conversation last Thursday. And he told me, this is not something that we, the public, are coming for. To be quite truthful with you, and please forgive this statement, but you folks don't understand what's coming up. You haven't read, you don't understand Prop 84 and 1E guidelines.
Thank
You
Mr.
read
Catt.
that.
Thank you, Mr. Catt. Please,
Well,
go ahead.
thank you, and we got to start doing something else too. When the people need to be heard in this, to this body, we. 3 minutes isn't going to get it at times.
Thank you, Mr. Catt. No. Mr. Keo.
I think that one thing that all of us in this room can agree on, and you mentioned it, and I believe it to be the proper approach, Mr. Minturn, and you said solutions have to be articulated and arrived at the local level. And certainly the observations that County Council have made from a legal perspective support that understanding. And so I think we're all generally going in the right direction here.
Okay, so I think we have at least one item before us and perhaps a second proposal after that, your suggested workshop. So would someone like to make a motion on the item before us?
I'll move approval of staff recommendation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
Under discussion.
Yes, sir.
Legal question. Since there seems to be an interest in presenting and offering the opportunity for the time to actually delve into these questions and hear more extensive testimony, can that be decided today, or can we simply, by consensus, refer that to staff to establish and set that as an upcoming a meeting and a special time? I don't want to leave the table today without concluding there.
Well, certainly, as I understand it, and correct me, Supervisor Modi, if I misunderstood, I believe that the chair was contemplating two possible actions. The first one being the matter of the staff item, and then he would entertain a motion for perhaps a workshop.
Well, the
That's
reason I'm
correct.
bringing it up is because it's not on the agenda to entertain a motion for a workshop. Is that a legal?
Yes, you can.
Can we make two motions legal? I just want to make sure before we conduct the
Yes,
first vote.
because all you're doing is placing a matter on a subsequent agenda for further discussion.
Well, based upon that, I'm going to continue to vote yes, inconsistency with my prior votes on the first motion that's on the table, with the hope that we will indeed bring all of the questions and offer the time for the public to have their questions answered, and we'll take care of the legal matters today.
And I'll just add under discussion, I'd like to point out again what Mr. Cruz has told us. It's very clear that the Integrated Regional Water Management Board has no control over our water. Right. And that we can choose to leave that management group anytime we want. We can control our own water. We can control our own projects. They can't make us do anything. In fact, quite frankly, and I know people here may not believe this, but the purpose of this group is to actually support our water rights and give us a stronger voice to avoid the Bay Delta and Southern California from taking our water. And you may not believe that, but that's the purpose of these counties are all rural counties. They count on their water. They need their water, and we need to protect our water, and that's the purpose of it. And I know you think it's regional government, but that's not the intent. And as been mentioned, this has no regulatory authority to be a regional governing body. Mr. Kehoe.
I'd like to make this observation. I think Shasta County is very fortunate to have such talented people as Mr. Minturn, Mr. Wiedemeyer, and Chairman Modi involved in this process, and I thank all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Keel. I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I will entertain a second motion.
Chair Modi, I would move that we direct staff to set a time and establish a platform for a community workshop regarding this subject.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you know that. Okay, we have a closed session announcement. The Board of Supervisors will recess to a closed session, discuss the following items estimated to be an hour and 15 minutes. It will be conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation with Reverge Alsemo et al. Versus Russ Mull et al., Reverge Alsemo et al. Versus County of Shasta et al., and the estate of Gene Lysick, and also a conference with our labor negotiator, with our negotiators being Mr. Lees, Ms. Schaefer, and Mr. Bell.
I have
Yes, sir?
I will be recusing from the two Anselmo matters in light of the county's cross-complaint against the State Department of Fish and Game and the Corps of Engineers because of my ownership interest in a corporation that has financial dealings with Fish and Game and the Corps of Engineers.
Thank you. At the conclusion of closed session, reportable action, if any, will be reported in open session. We now will recess, and the Air Pollution Control Board will convene. I will now convene the Shasta County Air Pollution Control Board for Tuesday, April 24th, 2012. I will advise the public that the Board of Supervisors does not receive any compensation or stipend as a result of convening as the Shasta County Air Pollution Control Board. The next item of business is public comment period. Anyone may speak before the board for 3 minutes. Be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the board pursuant to the Brown Act. No action can be taken or discussion taken on open time matters other than receive comments if deemed necessary to the appropriate department for follow-up. Does anybody wish to speak during open time? Seeing none, move on to consent calendar. The following consent items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. That will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested person may request that an item be removed from the consent calendar for later discussion. I have no previous requests.
Move approval of the consent calendar as distributed to the membership and the public.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The Air Pollution Control Board is adjourned.
Russ, we're going to do labor first